The Lord has given me many talents, and I'm very grateful for that. But because of our fallen human nature, that can also be a vice if you're not careful. And it was a vice for me early in life and even during my reversion. And so today in chapter 3 of Teaching of the Truth, we see why it's so important to have a humble opinion of oneself, as we spoke about last time. And I got wrapped up in communism. I left the church. I started to explore ideologies instead of faith. And I was convinced by the scientism of the day that I needed to question my faith and question God. Now, maybe questioning would be acceptable, because at some point your faith has to become your own, especially by confirmation. But I lived in a time where the faith had been watered down. My catechism was seriously lacking. I didn't even know that I needed to go to confession for mortal sin. I just marched up communion all the time. And there was a failure across the board, but that does not excuse my own failures, because Christ was presenting himself to me. I knew he was in the Eucharist, and I left the church. And so I explored these ideologies, and eventually, with God's help, obviously I returned, and God did not owe that to me at all. And so I'm grateful to him every day. And we still face these problems even now, those of us that are propelled by a certain intellectual prowess, a desire for earthly acknowledgments instead of just doing things for the glory of God and being at peace with him. And so this is something I admittedly still struggle with. So, happy is that person whom truth itself teaches, not by figures of speech and eloquent language, but as it is itself. Our opinions and our understanding often lead us astray and offer us very little insight. What good is a brilliant argument about hidden and obscure matters when God does not judge us by our knowledge of such things? It is a great mistake for us to neglect useful and necessary things and to direct our thoughts to curious and harmful ones. Having eyes, we do not see. Why should we bother about clever arguments and subtle meanings? When the eternal Word speaks, we are set free from countless theories and conjectures. All things spring from this one word, and all things speak of one word, and this word is the beginning, which also speaks to us. Without the word, no one understands correctly or draws the right conclusions about anything. That person to whom all things are one, and who draws all things to one, and who sees all things in one, may be steadfast in heart and rest peacefully in God. O God, the truth, make me one with you in endless love. I am often worn out by all that I read and hear. You are all that I want or desire. Let all teachers hold their peace. Let all creation be silent in your sight. You alone speak to me. The more a person is at one with himself and inwardly undivided, the more varied and profound things does he understand without effort. And I can tell you right now that is absolutely true. I've meditated on the rosary almost every single day since my reversion, although I have had a dry spell recently, which is very odd. But I can tell you that mysteries were revealed to me, and that it was without any effort. God just showed me these things. They would pop into my head because of the meditative practice. And I will say that the Catholic understanding of mystery is that it's something that you could meditate on, and you're constantly going to have truth revealed to you. Not new truths in the sense that it's a different truth, but more layers of that same truth unfolding before your eyes. So let's continue. For he receives the light of understanding from above. A pure, simple, and steady spirit is not distracted by flitting about from one thing to another, for he does all things to honor the God and tries in his heart to be free from all selfishness. What gets in your way and troubles you more than an undisciplined passion? The undisciplined passions of your own heart. A good, devout person first arranges inwardly the things to be done outwardly. He does not let his passions get the best of him, but he subjects them to the ruling of sound judgment. Who has a more fierce struggle than the person who strives to master himself? And this must be our occupation, to strive to master ourselves and daily to grow stronger and to advance from good to better. And this is why I often point out that ideology is not a solution. Ideology is a human construct that can or cannot work depending on certain natural elements that have to be in place, and certain things have to line up with human dignity. But also because the individual in the society and the many that make up the society all have to be directed towards God in the sense that they are reflective on their own sins, their own shortcomings, and what they need to do to improve themselves. And this gets into the question and the problem of the idea that people can embrace moral relativity. And oftentimes they won't even call it that because they've completely left logic behind altogether. But I digress. All perfection in this life has some accompanying imperfection, and all our speculation is not without some darkening mist. A humble understanding of yourself is a surer way to God than a profound searching after knowledge. Knowledge is not to be blamed, nor is the simple understanding of anything which is good in itself and which is made to be so by God. But a good conscience and a virtuous life are always to be put first. Nevertheless, many people have chosen to seek knowledge rather than to live well, and they are often led astray and their lives come to very little or nothing at all. Oh, if they would apply such diligence in rooting out vices and in planting virtues as they do in posing questions, there would not be so many evils and scandals among people, nor so much laxity in religious communities. Surely, when the day of judgment comes, we shall not be asked what we have read, but what we have done, not how well we have spoken, but how devoutly we have lived. Tell me, where are those professors and teachers today whom you knew so well while they were living and flourishing in their learning? Now, other people hold their positions, and I do not know whether they even think of them. While they lived, they seemed to be important, and now no one mentions them. Oh, how swiftly the glory of the world passes away. If only their lives had been in harmony with their learning, then all of their studying and reading would have been worthwhile. How many people perish in a generation through empty learning, caring little for the service of God, and because they prefer to be famous rather than humble, they perish with their own thoughts. That person is truly great who has great love. He is truly great who is small in his own eyes and regards every pinnacle of honor as nothing in itself. He is truly wise who regards all earthly ambitions as supremely unimportant, if they stand in the way of gaining Christ. And he is very learned indeed, who knows God's will and who makes it his own. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye. God bless. We'll see you next time on Conservative X.